Hey guys, welcome back to this week's new video. So I made a track yesterday. I don't know what genre should I specify it. I'll show you this track, so let me know in the comments below what genre do you think this track is. It's not a full-fledged track. I was just trying to improvise and I was trying to just brush up my music production skills. So that's why I made this track and it turned up pretty well. So I thought I should share this process with you guys. I should show what all plugins and what all elements in the track I've used, so that will help in your music production journey. So without wasting any time, let's dive into it. So first let's listen to the track and then we'll move ahead with the deconstruction. So let's hear it. So that was the small track. Now let's get into the deconstruction of this track. So let's start with the first track. So the first track over here is a Wurlitzer track, which is the stock Wurlitzer sound from Logic, which sounds like this. Now I've done some processing to this track, so I'll turn off all the plugins in the channel and I'll show you the raw sound, how it sounds. So this is the raw, straight out of the box sound of the Wurlitzer. It's totally dry. Now the first plugin which I added was the Valhalla Supermassive, which by the way is a free plugin if you don't know. I'll put a link in the description from where you can download this plugin, and it's a very creative plugin. It's basically a delay plugin, but you can get a lot of reverb sounds as well from this plugin. So let's hear how this Wurlitzer sounds with this Valhalla Supermassive. Some good reverb tail kind of sound, which I really like. So that's the Valhalla Supermassive. Now the next plugin is the Valhalla Delay. This is a delay plugin which sounds really good. I really love Valhalla plugins. They have a really good collection of plugins which you can use, especially Valhalla Room, Valhalla Delay, Valhalla Vintage Verb. It's such an amazing plugin. And recently they have released some free plugins which you can get, and it's absolutely crazy. You can do a lot of creative stuff with those free plugins. So you should definitely check those out. So this is without the Valhalla Delay. And with Valhalla Delay. Good tape delay sound, really good. Now the next plugin is also a very creative plugin. It's called the RC20 Retro Color by Excellent Audio. Now this emulates the old retro kind of sounds which you used to get from VHS tapes and vinyl players. It replicates those sounds with this plugin. So with this RC20 retro color, it sounds something like this. It's adding a little bit of wobble and then a little bit of vinyl noise and then some more distortion and little bit of reverb and some magnetic flutter kind of sounds, which makes a really good sound, which I really like, and it's a very creative plugin which you can use in your production as well. So that's the RC20. And then finally I have some low cut filter going over here with this FabFilter Pro Q2. So that's it for the Wurlitzer. Now with all the plugins, it sounds like this. So you can see how processing changes the whole feel of the track. You can take some stock sounds from Logic and make it your own by processing them. It's a really good thing, which I usually do in my production. Moving on to the next track, which is the organ. So let's hear it out in solo. It's basic organ sound which really complements this Wurlitzer track. So in this organ track, there is not much processing as compared to the Wurlitzer track. I have added a Valhalla vintage verb, which is a reverb by Valhalla DSP. It's a really great reverb. So let me turn these off first and let's hear it. So this is all dry sound of the organ. Oops, let me solo it. With Valhalla vintage verb. So you get that lush tail in the organ, which is really nice. I really love playing with reverbs. So the next plugin is the same plugin which I used in the Wurlitzer, which is the retro color RC20 by Excellent Audio. So without this, it sounds like this. With RC20, you get that wobbly sound again, which I really love. It's a really great creative plugin which I really love using. I'll make a dedicated video on this plugin in the future. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to make a dedicated video for this plugin. Moving ahead, we have a FabFilter Pro Q2, which again with a low cut filter. So I've used these low cut filters to make space for the sub bass. So those were the two tracks, the Wurlitzer and the organ. Now up next is the drums. Now for drums, I've used a sample pack from Cymatics, which is by San Holo, and that is absolutely free. You can check that sample pack out in the Cymatics website. I'll put a link in the description below from where you can check this out. And all the drum samples which you hear in this track are all from that Cymatics sample pack, which is absolutely free. You can download that sample pack and use it in your music as well. So the drum sounds something like this. So all the Cymatics San Holo sample pack, I think I've done some processing on the separate samples. So the kick has it has a low cut filter and a high shelf filter, just to boost a little bit of the high end on the kick, the punchiness, the clicky feel of the kick. And the low cut is there just because it shouldn't interfere with the sub frequency. That's why I've added a low cut around 30 Hertz. So that's the reason for that. For hi-hat, there's nothing going on. Snare, nothing going on. The second hi-hat, nothing going on. And I've taken the samples from that San Holo sample pack and I've added those samples in the Drum Machine Designer, which is the drum machine of Logic Pro X. So I've added those plugins over here and I've played them with my MIDI controller. So it's pretty simple with the drums. Up next is the sub bass. Now I've used Serum for making the sub bass tone, which is something like this. But unfortunately I can't show you the preset because I'm using Serum on a rent-to-own basis from Splice. If you don't know, from splice.com you can rent plugins on monthly basis, and once the amount of your rent is reached the actual amount of this plugin, you'll own that plugin. So you don't have to pay any more rental after that. But unfortunately this month my debit card got declined. I don't know why, but I'll figure it out. So that's why I'm not able to open the Serum preset. It's showing that you have to go to the splice.com and then renew your purchase. But I'm still able to access that patch. So this is the patch. So processing wise, here also not much is going on. So that was the sub bass. Now let's get into the guitars. So I've recorded my own guitar. I've recorded some plucks. So let's hear how it sounds. So I'll remove some of the processing. So this is the plain sound of my guitar with the Tone Forge Misha Mansoor plugin, which I use regularly for all my guitars. So this is the clean sound. And this is my default plugin which I use for all my guitar parts. So it sounds like this. So I've made a patch already called Organic Clean. So I use all my clean sounds on this patch. It has a reverb going on and a delay inside this Tone Forge Misha Mansoor plugin. And then I have a little bit of EQ going over here with a low cut filter and a little bit of low mids turned down. And then after that again the RC20 retro color, which adds a little bit of the retro vibe to this guitar track. So with all these processing, it sounds like this. Without the RC20, so the RC20 changes the whole vibe of this whole track. So I've used a lot of RC20 in most of the tracks and it really changes the feel of this track. Really love the wobble. So that was the guitar. Now let's get into the vocal chops. So over here we have a little bit of vocal chops going. So let's hear it and then we'll get into that. Now again, for this vocal chop, I've used the Cymatics sample pack, which is also free. I forgot the name of that sample pack. It's called Euphoria Vocal Chops. So it's from the Euphoria sample pack. I'll put the link in the description again, and it's absolutely free, so you can go to the Cymatics website and download these samples and use it in your production. And for this vocal chop, which sounds like this, I've taken a vocal sample from this Euphoria sample pack from Cymatics, and then I took a phrase which is something like this, and then I loaded that sample into the sampler of Logic Pro, which looks like this. And this sampler is mapped to the MIDI. So whatever note I play, it changes the pitch of that vocal chop, and then it's distributed to the MIDI. So you can hear that it's distributed to the whole MIDI, and I've used this MIDI controller to make this vocal chop. So that's the result of this vocal chop over here. Now up next is the brass pad over here. So the brass pad sounds like this. Now this brass pad gives a little variation and a good character to this part of this track. Now for this brass pad, I've used the Analog Lab by Arturia, which is a really great plugin. You have a lot of synths, organs, pianos, and a lot more. Really great stuff. And I've used one patch which is called a memory bass, which is a Moog modular synthesizer from the picture which I can see over here. So it's a really great plugin, and nothing more with the processing, just a Valhalla Supermassive over here and a little bit of EQing. Now I've used this EQ because the sound was really bright. So without this EQ it sounds like this. Now I didn't want that bright sound, so I've used this equalizer to manipulate that sound. So with the equalizer it sounds like this. Which also goes well with the track. So on top of that we have another variation with the guitars, which sounds like this. Now the processing in this track is same as the previous guitar track. Up next over here we have another vocal chop, which is a variation of the first vocal chops, and the sample in this vocal chop is just the same, but just I've added a little bit of variation in this. So it sounds like this. Looking at the processing over here in the vocal chops, we have a low cut filter going on in the FabFilter Pro Q2, and up next we have a Valhalla delay, which gives a good delay sound in the vocal chops, and after that we have a Valhalla vintage verb, which is a reverb. So combining all, it sounds like this vocal chop, which you already heard. And that's pretty much it. And we have another guitar variation over here, which sounds like this. So finally the track ends with the riff of the Wurlitzer, the organ and the guitar plugs which I showed you in the first place over here. So this is how the track ends. That's all for today's video, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I hope the content which I make really helps you and really gives you value. If you really loved watching this video, don't forget to press the like button, and if you haven't subscribed already, please press the subscribe button. I have a lot of informative content planned for you which I'll put in the future, so stay tuned and I'll see you around in the next video.